Welcome! You're listening to Chapter by Chapter Classics, the short-form classic literature podcast, where each episode walks you through a few chapters of a great book. In this season, we're exploring Frankenstein, or the Modern Prometheus, through two historic versions of the text, Mary Shelley's original 1818 edition and her revised 1831 edition, both available for free on Project Gutenberg. Today's episode is a spoiler-light overview of the story, the big themes, and why those two editions don't always tell the story in exactly the same way. Whether you're reading one version or both, this will give you the roadmap you need before we dive into the letters and chapters. Use this episode as your big picture guide, then continue with the chapter-by-chapter episodes for more detail.
Welcome to The Deep Dive, the show that gives you the crucial blueprint for navigating complex sources. Before you dive into the chapters, we rip open the material to give you the context, the connections, and, the necessary warnings. Today, we are taking on one of the most foundational texts in, all of English literature, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, or the Modern Prometheus.
And our goal in this deep dive is really a necessary orientation.
Yeah.
For a novel this rich, you kind of need to understand the vast scope of the plot, who the major players are, and the big themes at stake.
Right.
And critically, we're mapping this out using two different sources. The 1818 original text and then the revised 1831 edition. Both are pulled directly from our resources at Project Gutenberg.
And we really can't start without talking about the origin story. I mean, it's almost as famous as the novel itself. This wasn't written in some quiet study.
Oh, not at all. It was born out of a challenge in this haunted summer. Mary Shelley, in her own introduction, tells us the story was conceived during the cold and rainy summer of 1816. She was just 19, trapped inside a villa near Geneva with these literary giants.
Yeah, Lord Byron, her future husband, Percy Shelley.
Exactly. And to pass the time, they were reading ghost stories, and Byron just throws out this challenge. Everyone has to write their own supernatural tale.
And while the others kind of fizzled out, Mary Shelley has this waking nightmare. Right?
They did. She describes seeing this pale student kneeling before the thing he had put together. The whole idea just crystallized for her in that moment.
So it's published anonymously in 1818, but here's the crucial point for you as a reader.
Yes. In 1831, Mary Shelley goes back and significantly revises the whole text. She adds new introduction, she changes some of the nuances, and we're going to be tracking those shifts because they really change how you read the central question of, who's to blame?
Okay, so let's unpack this story. And you might think it starts in a lab, lightning flashing.
Right, the classic movie image.
But it doesn't. It actually starts at the very edge of the map, with a man sailing into the unknown.
The novel is framed by these letters from a Captain Robert Walton, who is on an Arctic voyage. And Walton, he's sailing north, looking for the North Pacific Passage, but also something more. He calls it a land of eternal light.
He's a man who's just consumed by ambition.
Completely. He's pushing human limits, which, echoes the very same impulse that we're about to see in Victor Frankenstein.
But what really stands out in those first letters is his loneliness. He writes to his sister that he needs a friend, someone with a cultivated as well as of a capacious mind to regulate my mind. He knows he's on a dangerous path.
And that desire is immediately, and I mean terribly, fulfilled. While they're stuck in the ice, his crew sees this impossible sight, a gigantic figure on a sledge speeding across the ice.
And then later they find another man.
Yes, they rescue a nearly dead, emaciated man. And that man is Victor Frankenstein.
So Walton gets the friend he wanted, but this friend isn't interested in discovery. He's consumed by vengeance.
He's chasing that giant figure, his creation, his nemesis. It's an immediate signal that this is not a story of scientific triumph. It is a tragedy of pursuit.
Victor then takes over the narration. He tells Walton his whole story. He was a student from Geneva, first drawn to the wild fancies of the old alchemists.
Right, Agrippa, Paracelsus. This almost mystical stuff before he switches to modern science. He was driven by an almost supernatural enthusiasm to find the secret of the principle of life.
I wonder if that switch from alchemy to chemistry even matters. He keeps that same feverish, obsessive quality.
Absolutely. The source material really emphasizes that. It's not the science itself that's bad, it's the obsession.
And his goal becomes so specific. He wants to understand decay, to understand corruption, so he can reverse it.
To create life itself. And this work just consumes him. He locks himself away in his workshop. He abandons his friends. His health completely fails.
And here's a key detail people often miss. He's studying in charnel houses, graveyards. But he realizes that working on a normal human scale is just too difficult. The parts are too small.
So he makes a decision, a really critical, fatal decision. He decides to build his creation on a colossal scale. This is why the creature is a gigantic figure.
He makes him enormous just for ease of construction.
Yeah. But in doing that, he guarantees the creature will be an outcast. He'll be instantly feared by society. The creature is rejected before he even takes his first breath, all because of his creator's technical shortcut.
And that shortcut becomes this huge ethical catastrophe. The second he succeeds, the moment he animates this sensitive and rational animal, all that ambition just vanishes.
It's replaced by horror and misfortune. He finally sees how ugly the thing he's assembled is. The text says he just flees the apartment, runs into the streets.
Leaving the creature totally alone, a newborn essentially, who is conscious and looking for connection.
And in that moment of abandonment, Victor becomes the author of Unalterable Evils. The whole tragedy is set in motion right there.
It's that refusal of parental duty. If he had stayed, if he had just offered some basic care, the whole story would be different. Instead, the narration shifts to the creature. And this, for me, is maybe the most powerful part of the novel.
It is, because it completely challenges your assumptions. He isn't born a monster. He starts as a poor, helpless, miserable wretch, just learning about the world. Fire, cold, his own senses.
And he learns about humanity by watching a family in secret.
Yes, the DeLacy family. He finds a little hovel next to their cottage and watches them through a crack in the wall. He learns their language. He sees their poverty, but also their gentleness. He learns about virtue and family.
So he gets this entire education in secret.
For months. And he builds up the courage to try and connect with the one person who can't judge him on his looks. The blind father, DeLacy. He hopes he can find a protector, a friend.
But the others come back.
And it's over in an instant. They react with pure, visceral disgust and affright. They attack him. And this is the central trauma for the creature. It proves to him that society will never, ever accept him. It shows him the barbarity of man.
And that's when the change happens.
That's where his initial goodness curdles into bitterness and then finally into rage. He's eternally alone, cut off from all sympathy and affection. So his first act of revenge is to burn their cottage to the ground.
And the violence just escalates. He murders Victor's little brother, William, and then because Victor stays silent, an innocent servant, Justine, is framed for the crime and executed.
Victor's inaction just lets the tragedy spread. Later, the creature murders Victor's best friend, Henry Clerval, and this all leads to that famous confrontation on the glacier.
Where the creature doesn't just attack, he argues, he uses logic.
He does. He calls Victor his natural lord and king, and then he delivers that chilling line, comparing himself to the fallen angel whom thou drivest from joy for no misdeed. He argues that Victor owes him happiness.
And he offers a deal.
A deal. Build me a companion, a female mate, just as hideous as I am. If you do, we will go into exile in South America and never bother humanity again, if you refuse.
He'll become the scourge of your fellow creatures.
Exactly.
So Victor agrees, but he can't go through with it. He starts building the second creature, but then he destroys her. Why?
He's terrified. He imagines a whole race of these creatures. What if she refuses the deal? What if they breed and plague the earth? It is maybe an act of responsibility to humanity, but it's the ultimate betrayal to this creation.
The creature is watching through the window and sees this. His last hope is gone.
And his rage is absolute. That's when he delivers that bone-chilling vow. I will be with you on your wedding night.
Which Victor completely misinterprets. He thinks the creature is coming to kill him.
He misses the point entirely. The creature isn't after Victor's life. He's after his happiness. He murders Victor's bride, Elizabeth, on their wedding night. And after that, it's total desolation. Victor's father dies of grief, and Victor is left with nothing but a single-minded need for revenge.
Which is the state he's in when Robert Walton finds him in the Arctic.
That's the whole narrative skeleton.
Yeah.
So let's zoom out and look at the big themes that make this story last. The first one has to be scientific hubris.
Right. Victor wasn't trying to cure a disease. He wanted to be a god. He called himself an archangel who aspired to omnipotence.
The novel is just this profound warning about pursuing knowledge for glory without any thought for the ethical fallout.
And that leads right to the second pillar, parental responsibility.
The creature makes it very clear. A creator owes a duty to his creation. Victor's refusal, calling him fiend, demon, it's all a way of denying that responsibility.
Which creates the third theme, this profound isolation and alienation.
It's a novel of mutual misery. Victor is isolated by his secret. The creature is isolated by his appearance. Both of them are completely cut off from the sympathy and affection that, make life worth living.
And tied to that, of course, is prejudice. The creature could have been good.
He was good. But society, starting with his own creator, judges him purely on his looks. That constant, instant rejection is what turns him into a monster. Cruelty here isn't innate. It's a learned response to human barbarity.
Okay, so that brings us to maybe the most fascinating part of this deep dive. The differences between the 1818 and the 1831 texts. The plot's the same, but the moral argument shifts.
It really does. In the 1818 original, the focus is squarely on Victor's choice, his personal failure. The tragedy is a direct result of his moral cowardice. He's the author of unalterable evils. Full stop.
He's just a flawed, selfish man.
Pretty much. But if you look at the 1831 revision, which she wrote much later in her life, the language softens that. Victor starts talking about destiny, about fate. He calls the force guiding him the angel of destruction.
So he's externalizing the blame.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's suggesting that he was less a moral failure and more a victim of some unavoidable fate. The tragedy becomes less about his bad choices and more about a curse he brought down on himself.
And she even adds that quote from Coleridge's Ancient Mariner, right?
She does, which is a poem all about a man relentlessly pursued by doom. It doubles down on that fatalistic reading. So for you, the reader, you have to ask, is Victor responsible or was he just a pawn?
Okay, so this orientation should give you the perfect structure for your reading. You have the narrative frame, Victor's story, the creature's story.
And you're grounded in those major conflicts: hubris, responsibility, prejudice. We are really excited to start our chapter-by-chapter walkthrough, starting with Walton's letters and moving through the whole novel, comparing both texts as we go.
Before we close, here's a final thought to take with you. The subtitle is The Modern Prometheus.
Right. Prometheus stole fire, knowledge to help humanity, and was punished for it. But Victor stole the spark of life for his own glory.
So if the creature at the very end decides to go to the farthest north to build his own funeral pyre and, consume to ashes this miserable frame, what does that final act tell us?
He's destroying himself with fire, the very element of Prometheus. Was the fire Victor stole just too dangerous? Does the creature's self-destruction prove that any creation without love and duty must in the end destroy itself?
It's a profound question about the cost of knowledge.
And it's one we'll be exploring deeply in the episodes to come.
That's our bird's eye view of Frankenstein and the two main editions we'll be working from this season. In the episodes ahead, we'll walk through the letters and chapters in order, using both the 1818 and 1831 texts, and pointing out key differences when they change how we understand a character or a scene. If you'd like to read along, you can find links to both editions in the show notes. Next time, we'll head into the Arctic with Robert Walton in letters 1 through 4. Thanks for listening to Chapter by Chapter Classics. If this episode helped you follow the story, follow the show in your podcast app so you don't miss the next chapter. And if you're enjoying this series, please take a moment to rate the podcast or leave a short review. It really helps other readers and students find the show.